You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today on our second house call of the weekend, we're following up from yesterday. If you didn't tune in, definitely check out stephencabral.com/273. That's 273. And that is 4 additional questions we went over yesterday. Everything from some cysts or folliculitis on the scalp, cold sores, herpes-based remedies. We gave you the remedies. We gave you the foods to watch out for, especially during times of viruses in general. What else did we talk about? We talked about very light sleepers, how to get into a deeper sleep, and a lot more things like on specific things like parasite cleanse protocols and how long exactly those should be. So check that out. Now today we have 4 more great questions, very different. And the first one starts with a supplement review. So the supplement's actually called SuperBeets, and Carolina writes in and she says, love listening to all your podcasts. Thanks for all you do and teach us. What are your thoughts on a product called SuperBeets? I'm looking to have more energy and eventually not need coffee in the mornings. So I love nutritional supplements. And one of the reasons is this, and most people don't understand, if you get a good quality nutritional supplement, it's basically condensed food an amount that you simply wouldn't be able to get on your own. And if you did try to eat that much, you'd most likely get bloating or just trying to break down all the fibers from all the plant-based fibers or all the sugar from the fruit. So we're looking at a product like SuperBeets. Why all the interest in beets lately, right? Last Friday, so just a couple days ago, episode 272, I gave you my best fall juice recipe. So fresh pressed juice. What's in it? I said beets. You're going to put beets in it. Why beets? So beets are so amazing for producing natural nitric oxide in the body. What that does is it allows your blood vessels to relax. It's like a vasodilator, so it opens everything up. You can move more oxygen, more circulation through your body. And also, one of the reasons why I like it is it helps with liver congestion. Just to let you a little bit into my insight about how I choose nutritional supplements. And again, I've personally used well over 1,000. I've studied well over at least 5,000, literally, in the last 20 years. Absolutely, it was one of the big things, one of the 2 or 3 big things that helped me on my road to recovery for getting well. But the issue with single products like this one, so SuperBeets is basically a powdered beet. Well, that's it. It's powdered beets. And what it does is it says it equals 3 non-GMO beets. Okay, so it's great that it's non-GMO. It doesn't say anything about being organic, but it's non-GMO, so that's a great start. And what does it do? Well, it gives you all of the essence of taking in 3 beets. Now, the problem with that is that a single supplement solution is typically never the answer, all right? And the reason is this. Our body doesn't work when we use one single supplement, we're almost using it like a drug, right? We're saying this one thing. It's this one thing that's going to give us that stimulus. I don't like to look at that. Will it boost performance? I'm not saying it won't. I absolutely am not saying that. Will it boost performance? I bet it will. No doubt about it. It's going to increase oxygen. However, just keep in mind, when we overload on any one particular thing, there can be side effects. And the side effects of drinking too much beet juice, and this is a real thing, temporary vocal cord paralysis. This has actually happened with multiple people who drink straight beet juice. Now, this may not happen with the beet juice powder and called SuperBeets, but it has happened with regular beet juice. Although rare, there's liver toxicity because of how strong it is on your liver. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means we don't want to overdo it. It can cause diarrhea, vomiting. You'll have, your urine and your stool may be a little red. That's not abnormal. It's because there's like basically the red dye from all of the beets, which of course we're talking about red beets here. And there is the potential, because beets are high in oxalates, that if your body is not balanced, it could crystallize and cause kidney or gallstones. That's a problem, right? So, but look at it this way. If you're just doing some beet juice or just a shot of it, like one beet juiced, these aren't really going to be an issue. But what if you're taking something like SuperBeets? And again, I'm not saying anything bad about this product because it absolutely, what it's meant for is to boost performance. It could absolutely do that. What I talk about though is health first. How do I help people lose weight? I get them healthy first. How do I help them live longer? Get them healthy first. It's like all of those specific things. You have an autoimmune disorder? Okay, great. We're going to get you healthy first. And all of these things just disappear. Whether it's aging-related issues, whether it's aches, pains, fibromyalgia, low thyroid, all of these things. Your body cannot be sick if it's healthy, right? That's kind of just straightforward. So my recommendation is this. Let's look past SuperBeets just for a moment because, sure, it could be a great product. The reason why, so I would just say, let's just use an overall greens powder first, right? And your greens powder may have some beet in it. And then it's a bunch of smaller amounts of greens in that powder that's also going to provide the oxygen, that's also going to alkalize your body as well, meaning just provide it with more alkaline-based minerals. So that's how I want to put it, okay? Which is going to help increase oxygen for sure. So why not do that when you first wake up? I believe I talked about this, must have been on my free smoothie reports on 270, so episode 270. So I talk about how I wake up in the morning. I've done this for a long time. I squeeze fresh lemon juice into about 6 to 8 ounces of water, and then I put in a scoop of greens powder. And then I'll do a pinch of sea salt. That gives me a great boost of energy, and then I do my smoothie. I'm telling you, if you do those two things, you're not going to have an issue with energy at all because you're super hydrating your body. I mean, the fruit and vegetable powder that I recommend is 22 fruits and vegetables. So if you look at that, it's not one that's in a large amount. It's 22 split up over into a smaller amount. And that, of course, is just called our daily fruit and vegetable blend. 22 organic fruits and vegetables, so there's no pesticides, which is kind of important. And then some superfoods in there as well. So hopefully that works for you. And again, you can use any product you want. Whatever you feel is best for you, absolutely. Would I use a product like SuperBeets? Maybe every once in a great while, if I was working out with a friend and like, oh, I have some SuperBeets, and I look at it, I'm like, all right, it's non-GMO. Why don't I give it a shot for this workout? I'm not going to use it every day. That's how I would maybe look at it. For an everyday product, it doesn't pass my test. It's one specific nutrient looking to do the job of a drug, basically, and not of overall balancing the body. So again, not disparaging SuperBeets. I bet it is great for performance. They show that cyclists get benefits from it, and no doubt about it, what it does increase nitric oxide. All right. Carlos is up next. Carlos is asking, what is the best way to fix an anterior pelvic tilt? Thanks in advance for your help. Excellent question. I love to see this come in. I don't get to talk about exercise enough on this podcast. It is my original background, and it is my background to this day. Is a big part of everything I do is teaching people too about the benefits of exercise, who shouldn't over-exercise, who needs to exercise more, who needs more yoga than weight training, who needs more weight training than yoga. So we look at all these different things. So I love this question. Again, if I didn't mention, it's from Carlos. Carlos is asking, how do you fix that anterior pelvic tilt? Well, let's talk about what's a pelvic tilt in the first place for those people who are not personal trainers or don't know the industry. Well, it means this. If you're just standing up, it means pelvic tilt is when your hips, so we're going to call that your pelvis, is tilted forward. What does that look like to the average person? It looks like they have a big arch in their lower back and their stomach is sticking out. It's sticking forward. So a lot of times bodybuilders have this, and I work with the bodybuilders on their physique, I work on their nutrition, I work on all these different things, and their stomach is literally protruding forward even though they have low body fat. So they actually look like they have a stomach, like they have kind of a gut there sticking out, and they don't. They're actually just very tight, and we're going to talk about that. So that's an anterior pelvic tilt. Think about that lordosis, that lordotic curve, that lower back is really arched. So what does that do? It makes a really tight lower back. That contributes to a lot of people's tight lower back issues, okay? And I'm going to talk about why it's caused, but what a posterior pelvic tilt is the opposite. That means they have actually a rounded lower back, okay? That's different. That's called a posterior pelvic tilt. Neither one is good. What do we want? We want neutral. We want a neutral pelvic tilt, or just neutral in the middle. So I want you to look at how do we fix this, because it's not difficult at all. Not difficult at all. So what we have to think about is we know what an anterior pelvic tilt is. That's when everything's kind of dumped forward. The best way to look at it is like you have a bucket of water. If you tip it forward, that's an anterior pelvic tilt. All the water's falling out. If you tip it backwards, that's a posterior pelvic tilt. So you want to get it right in the middle so the bucket's not spilling. That's how you should look at your hips, your pelvis, and then your abdomen's right above it. So really important. We know that if you're in an anterior pelvic tilt, your psoas muscles, so your hip flexors are tight, potentially even the psoas is in the front. It's right where basically the groin is, and it goes all the way up and it connects to your spine, and that's why it can pull those hips forward. And the other part is looking at your TFL. That's kind of the side of your hip and moves into right beside your hip flexor as well. Those two things, those two tight areas can lead to, especially the psoas, to those hips being pulled forward. So how do we fix that? Well, basically a kneeling lunging stretch. So you get down on both knees and you put one leg about 2 or 3 feet in front of you. You put both hands on that front quadricep. You keep your chest up, rib cage lifted, and you lunge forward. You have one knee down, 1 foot in front. That's opening up that back hip. So that's stretching your back hip flexor. You rotate slightly away. Now, if you do yoga, this will remind you of a warrior pose or warrior stretch. However, in yoga, you actually turn the back foot open a little bit, but in an actual psoas stretch, we want to keep that pointed forward. Okay, let me go a little bit deeper. A lot of times, too, people have tight hamstrings. Not always in this particular case, but most people do. I like to open up the hamstrings. I like to open up the calves, but I especially like to open up those psoas muscles. And the other really important thing is that we strengthen 2 muscles in particular, the glutes and the abs, or the core muscles, not the rectus abdominis that you see from doing a lot of crunches, but the actual transverse abdominis, which are the muscles that you can't see underneath that act like your own natural weight belt. So first, we want to do an exercise like a plank, right? So you can keep your arms on the floor, just your hips up higher than you think they should be. Strengthen that, just get to 60 seconds. And then I want you to start doing things like if you lie on the floor and you pull both knees into your chest and stomach, engaging your abs, that actually puts you into what's called a posterior pelvic tilt, and that will counterbalance your anterior pelvic tilt, strengthen your abdominal muscles at the same time. And then for your glutes, well, basic exercises are really going to help. Squats are going to help tremendously, and so are Romanian deadlifts. Those are fantastic. That's more like a 10 to 20 degree bend in your knees. Now, the last one I think, and I'll recap this in just 1 second. I probably should have made this its own show. The last one, really, really great is kettlebell swings, right? So when you do a kettlebell swing, keeping your eyes forward, you stretch that kettlebell through your legs behind you, kind of like hiking the ball in football. That stretches your hammies and glutes. And then you thrust forward on the way up, not with your arms, but with your hips. And that opens up your hips. That opens up your psoas. So what do you need to do? You need to stretch those psoas muscles, stretch your calves, stretch your hamstrings, absolutely. You can even stretch your abs if you feel that they're tight. Now, you can do that by literally lying over a ball if you want, upside down, kind of like that crab stretch or bridge stretch. Without a doubt, that works great. And then you want to strengthen those squats. You want to strengthen your hamstrings and glutes for Romanian deadlifts. You can do lunges. Lunges are fantastic as well. One more, Bulgarian split squats. Look up Bulgarian split squats. That would be my number 1 corrective exercise. And the last part is reverse crunches. You can look those up as well. Hopefully that helps. Really tough just talking over a podcast, but I think you'll get the gist, especially if you just replay it, listen to those recommendations. Patrick is up next, and Patrick's asking, I know you're not a fan of coffee or caffeine, but I'm curious, is it the caffeine that makes coffee detrimental or the compounds and makeup of coffee itself? Is drinking decaf okay? So you know what? I believe this question was already answered because it came in 2 weeks ago. This question is by Patrick. On Tuesday, it's episode 269. I'm not going to go into this. The podcast was literally called, Is Coffee Good or Bad for You? And Chad asked this question, I think 2 weeks ago as well. So I answered that. It is in depth. I'm not going to go into it now. I do not have anything against coffee or caffeine, but you have to ask yourself, who is it good for? Not is it good, because it is a supplement. People, they're like, oh, I don't use supplements. I'm like, do you drink tea? Do you drink coffee? Those are all supplements. They really are. They're plants, they're beans. It's crazy how we kind of like lump things into all these categories like, oh, I would never do that. And, coffee's the main supplement, especially like when MDs are like, I don't believe in supplements, and they drinking, 2 or 3 coffees a day. And again, nothing against that, but I'm half joking around tongue in cheek because people are using supplements all day long and they don't even know it. You put sugar in anything, hey, that's a supplement. It's literally a supplement. So anyway, that is that. And I think you'll get my answer there for sure. Again, that's episode 269. I'm not against it, but of course, just keep in mind, caffeine is like whipping the horse, right? If that horse is exhausted, it's tired, it's worn out, it will get up and it will keep running, but you are just pushing the norepinephrine levels and adrenaline levels. You are pushing fight or flight, and you are pushing cortisol. If your body is not equipped to handle that, well, there's going to be issues with blood sugar regularity. There's going to be issues issues with hormones, your endocrine system. There can be issues then with your thyroid, your gut function in general. So look into it. And then is decaf okay? I spoke about that as well. Decaf may be okay. Some people it actually lowers their HDL, which is your good cholesterol. But a lot of times you really just need to find a water processed version of it. So it's called the Swiss water process, and that is a cleaner way to decaffeinate the beans. But at the same time, you may just not need it. If you really enjoy it, you really love it, then always just do that small coffee, and for the most part, you do it first thing in the morning, not during the day, and you'll be okay. But tune in 269 because I did a whole detailed episode on that. All right, last question is from Lisa. Lisa is asking, hi, Stephen, I suffer from a form of migraine where I get a dull ache on the right side of my head and brain fog. It's quite debilitating. But I would like to understand more of the eliminating the root cause. What would you recommend? I recall in a former podcast, you made a link between headaches, inflammation, and antihistamines. And so I tried using my hay fever medication once, which is an oral nasal steroid. And I used my regular antihistamine tablets, which surprisingly worked. Please help. So it's funny because I talk about this all the time. I ask people who come into my Boston practice and I say, what have you used that's worked for you before? And they'll often talk about, well, this pharmaceutical drug worked, but it gave me all the side effects too. So that's my first indicator. It's funny because I had someone come in the other day and they had just had massive amounts of joint pain and inflammation. And whenever they take antibiotics, they don't have any more joint pain or inflammation. And it's really funny, right? An antibiotic, that's an antibacterial, right? How would that possibly help joint pain? Well, it does when you look at the fact that the bacteria can be in your gut, which that bacteria is killing and also could actually potentially be in the joints. And now we know that antibacterials or antibacteria, antibiotics, which just biotics is life, then that works. Okay, now I know a starting point. For sure this works. Now there's a lot of other things, but that's what I'd look at. Now, in your case, you said, oh, antihistamines work for me. That's interesting. And so do nasal sprays. Nasal sprays jack up norepinephrine, which may in turn increase cortisol. Well, that's going to be a natural anti-inflammatory. And the antihistamines cut down on the histamines produced or mast cell degradation, as well as something called mastocytosis, which is what I had and what I'm prone to, which is just basically a bunch of mast cells flying around with cytokines causing massive inflammation and allergies and not a good environment. And so here's the thing. All of this, honestly, the root cause, the starting place is in the gut. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth is that's where diamine oxidase is, which is the natural enzyme produced by our body to eliminate histamines in foods. And, so first look up high histamine foods. There's tomatoes and spinach, and then it's mainly like vinegar and all fermented foods and alcohol and things like curries and cinnamon and nutmeg. Those things can increase inflammation. And they can also absolutely 100% cause migraines. So what I would say is this, Lisa, is you can just start doing like an antibacterial, anti-yeast-based protocol, a natural one, of course. You can see what we use on the website as well, which is just at StephenCabral.com. Feel free to just check it out if it works for you. And then you're going to then start to seal up that gut wall. I'm telling you, every allergy book I've ever recommended by a true functional medicine doctor and anyone like that, it's always the same thing. It really is. And because it's the truth, right? Everyone's saying, look at the gut, look at the gut, look at the gut, detox, look at the gut, fix it, seal it. That is it. That's where it. And then, of course, look at your food sensitivities. If you haven't run a food sensitivity yet, it's so simple. You literally just poke the finger just like you would for a little blood prick, like a diabetic would do with a lancet. You drop it on a card, you send it in. If you do it with us, you get my personal recommendations. It shows you all the specific things. It's so simple, and it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things. And again, you can find that at the store as well. So you're absolutely on the right track because you see what's going on. You see that your antihistamines work. And so we know there's a histamine issue. We see that your nasal spray, your steroids, remember, not anabolic steroid, this is a catabolic, meaning cortisol-based steroid, that works as a natural anti-inflammatory, which means your body's kind of worn out. It really is. It needs to be boosted from the adrenals, and you need to start repairing the gut. It's a little bit of work, but you can do it. And the nice thing is, you will one day no longer have allergies, no longer have migraines. This is not something you need to live with for the rest of your life. Remember, I had a headache every day for about 4 years straight. None of my doctors had any idea what it was. I was actually on allergy medication I won't mention the brand, that pushed something called epinephrine. You can look in the back of them. And it caused me to have a headache, a dull headache on the side of my head for 4 years straight. I was just a kid. I was like from 10 years old to maybe 14 years old. And it was debilitating. And I had to come off the allergy medication. So always look at all these effects too of the drugs that you're taking. Now, did it cure me? No, it didn't cure my allergies. I still had to fix that because I had to deal with them forever. But then I fixed them. And so I want to give you hope, first of all. You absolutely don't have to live with this for the rest of your life. Look at the side effects of drugs that you're taking also, then start to get to that root cause. So I named a couple labs, the adrenal lab that you could look at for your cortisol levels, the food sensitivity lab you could absolutely do check out, and then your anti-yeast, antibacterial protocol to at least start with. So hopefully this helps. One more thing, Lisa, vitamin C. Vitamin C is like one of the huge things that's so inexpensive. In this case, I'm recommending ascorbic acid. A lot of people who haven't looked deep into it will say you should be recommending a food source base of vitamin C. You should be using camu or acerola berry. Well, guess what? All of those things can increase histamines. Citrus-based foods are histamine producing. If you're a health practitioner, understand that there is not one recommendation that you will give for every person. You give whatever is best for that particular patient or wellness client. And in this case, Lisa would not do well with a citrus-based vitamin C product. She would benefit most from an ascorbic acid-based one, because ascorbic acid and vitamin C is going to be a natural antihistamine. It's going to help temporarily, and then as we're helping Lisa get better, we're going to wean her off. So little last tip there. Thank you everyone for tuning in to another Cabral House Call. Really appreciate, again, all the questions that come in, and I'm looking forward, hopefully you are too, to a brand new Motivation and Mindset Monday, and that's coming tomorrow. So check it out. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.